Look how massive this box is. It takes up practically all of my desk. I didn't think of the logistics of that when I ordered it. Oops! Hello! Today I'm going to be getting into this enormous wooden box of Faber Castell Albrecht Durer Watercolour pencils. This is the 120 set. It is humongous. It also is incredibly beautiful. So let's get into it, shall we? So I actually bought this last year on shopping points. It cost me nothing because I had enough points to get it on Australian and New Zealand flybys. I had a look just now and it is not there anymore. There is at the time of filming a 36 set, but alas not the largest 120 set. So I'm really glad I ordered it when I did. And when it turned up I just went, oh my goodness, it is huge. I'm going to take off the cardboard. This has been driving me insane. I just want to get rid of it because I want to be able to open the box easily and the cardboard's in the way. So I am taking that cover off and storing it somewhere else. Look at this beautiful wooden box. It's got a metal handle up the end here and it's pretty heavy. Down here it has two metal knob things which you turn around and that's how it opens. And then when I open the box it's going to leave it out into two layers. Here we go! How beautiful is that? How satisfying are they to look at? I have not yet used these, so they are all perfection. None of them have been sharpened. I haven't even swatched them yet. I've just been looking at them, admiring their beauty. Unfortunately, when they're on my desk, it means there's no room for me to do anything. So I'm actually going to move these to a different part of my studio, and I'll just have to take the pencils out when I need them, rather than sitting the whole thing on my desk like this. So I have this set of drawers in my studio and I actually have all of my sketchbooks and other papers in it. I will go through it one day, but I've got space on top to keep my box of pencils here. It's a bit of a pest having it in a totally different area to where all of my other coloured pencils are, but it's the best I can do and I can actually open it. There we go. This is going to have to do for now. I'm just going to have to wander over here when I want different pencils. I've managed to pull out the inserts, so I think it will be a little bit easier to have them on my desk just like this rather than the whole box, although the bottom insert's much bigger as you can see. I hope I can get these back into the box. But now I need to record all of the names and swatch them out. This is going to be a big job, isn't it? I have some awkwardly shaped swatch cards here. I've ruled them out onto Fabriano watercolour paper and I decided that I want to have one per tray in a row so that I can just see all of the colours side by side rather than doing them on multiple levels. So I do apologise that my writing is going to be sideways for this swatching. But here you can see I've written in all the names, and let's not talk about the fact that I missed one up here and had to go over all of it with correction tape and then redo it. Ah, what a mess that made, but it's not looking too bad. This paper is too expensive to re-rule another sheet, so I figured I would live with it. And then I've got one for the second tray here. I have to say that this is the most awkward thing that I've ever swatched out. These trays are just so massive. And of course the first pencil is white, so you can't see it. Ivory and cream aren't exactly easy to see either, but they do become more visible as I go along. And yes, I know I could have turned the paper around a bit so you could see the writing in an upright position, but I just really wanted to line it up with the pencil so you could see it all on the screen like this. And it's also just so much easier to swatch them like that. I'm swatching only halfway down so that I can wet them with water and drag that colour down a bit later. But I thought I'd swatch them all out dry first so you can just see what they look like as regular coloured pencils. And of course they can be used like normal coloured pencils, but they are just so much better when you activate them with water. That really brings out the vibrancy of the colours. I'm just resting my hand on a piece of paper here so I don't put oils from my hand onto the watercolour paper. I realised as I was putting this video together later that I didn't actually pull out a pencil and show it close up to the camera. I sometimes wish I had a production team to remind me of these things, but alas, I am a one-woman show, so do forgive me when I forget things. But basically the pencils are a hexagonal shape and they're quite thick, so they're really nice to hold. These are some of the chunkiest watercolour pencils out there, rivaled only by the Caran d'Ache Museum aquarels, which I still have yet to review. These Albrecht Durers come in a set of 120 as their largest, and of course there are smaller sets as well. I have the wooden box set here, but you can also get the 120 pencils in a tin. It's much smaller and compact. It's also cheaper than the wooden box, but there is something gorgeous about that box. It does look aesthetically pleasing in the studio, but boy, it takes up a lot of room. As I said, I didn't pay for these, which is why I ended up getting them. I had enough points and it was really exciting to buy something as beautiful as this set. I mean, most of the other rewards are for kitchen items and stuff like that. Boring! You can see in this first row that there is a rather lovely spectrum of colours ranging from yellows to orange, reds, pinks, purples and blues. I think there's even a few turquoises and greens on the end that I'm coming up to. The pencils don't look especially exciting at the moment in their dry form. I find with all watercolour pencils that they're never as smooth as regular wax-based or oil-based coloured pencils. There is something grippy about them and they just don't come out on the paper as nicely as non-soluble pencils. But when you get the water on these ones, they are absolutely stunning. They reactivate in water immediately, they're really smooth, and all of a sudden they become incredibly vibrant. I'm trying to show it as much as I can on the camera. It was pretty difficult painting this out because my lines are so skinny and I don't have a lot of space. I was using a flat brush which was about the same width just to try and keep the colours contained within their little boxes. I did get a little bit of running between colours, but not too badly. The pigments in watercolour pencils tend to be quite heavy, probably because of the binder as well, so they don't run as much as watercolours will. And you can see there's a little bit of residue from the pencils on the paper. They do actually lift better than this. It's just because I was really struggling to dissolve all of the pencil with the paintbrush. I was able to do this more easily with my painting near the end of the video, so stick around to watch that. But it was really satisfying swatching out all of these colours. I really like the pinks that they have in this set. Though there are a couple of colours which are not considered to be lightfast. They come in a star system. 1 star is the lowest light fastness, and then there are 2 stars and 3 stars, the 3 stars being the highest light fastness range. Most of the colours in this set are 2 and 3, so they're very good. There are just a few which are considered to be 1 star, and I'm pretty sure that all of these are listed on Faber Castell's website, so I'm going to link that down below, and you can check out all of the individual colours to see which ones are the least and most light fast. It was too hard to fit them on the swatch sheet, and honestly we'd be here all day if I talked about every individual colour in this set. There are so many of them, 120 to be exact. And there's also no way that I was doing a real-time swatch of this. Well, I had to do a real-time swatch, but it took me so long. I've had to speed all of it up. But I personally think that sped-up footage is far more interesting to watch. What do you think? Let me know in the comments if you do like real-time swatching. But here they all are on this first row. Don't they just look beautiful? I love the colour palette. It's so gorgeous. If you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you know I love bright colours. But here we go onto the second tray, and we're picking up where we left off on the first tray with the greens. There's always one colour that has to be on 2 different trays. It's often blues, but today we're going with greens. So there is a pretty decent array of greens in this set, from the brighter ones to deeper, more earthy greens. And overall this tray is pretty much all of the earth tones, going in from those greens to the greeny browns and then darker browns here. There is a little odd grouping just in this middle part of the tray where it kind of goes into these redder pinky colours again. And I'm pretty sure that the salmon coral and beige red actually used to be called flesh tones, like flesh, dark, medium and light. But they did actually change the names recently, I think. As a lot of companies have, because of course not everyone has the same coloured flesh tones, and it's probably just better to call them other colours. Then everybody's happy. So moving out of these reddy brown colours into yellow ochres and more yellow style browns. There's quite a decent range of browns here in traditional colours like burnt umber and Van Dyke brown. There's a burnt sienna in there as well, and then one of my favourites, the walnut brown, which I think is one of the darkest. The sepia is also there, but that's a little bit more grey. The Faber Castell range has a nice array of greys, going from warm greys into what they call cold greys, not cool, which is interesting. There's also Payne's grey and black, and then they have a silver, gold and copper. Honestly, the only one of those three that I like is the silver. The gold and the copper are really scratchy, and I always really struggle to get any kind of pigment out of them. They're just too hard or something. But here we go with the best part, the swatching of the colours in water. Gosh, they look beautiful. Faber Castell Albrecht Durer pencils are some of the best watercolour pencils I've ever used, especially when it comes for dissolving out the pigment. They are fantastic. They do leave a little bit of residue, but this is the nature of water-soluble media in pencil or crayon form. It's the binder, I think, and probably some of the pigments. They just tend to drop down and leave a little bit of residue on the paper. If you want super smoothness, you'll probably need to go with watercolours, or you can colour the pencils onto a different surface and then wet them and use them like a watercolour palette. I use this technique in my painting today. Just a little bit anyway. Normally I will just use the pencil straight onto the paper because that's my preferred way of using them, and I also have plenty of watercolours that I can use the other technique for. It does come in handy for a few things though. I'm not normally a fan of yellow ochres, but I think the three that are in the set are really pretty. They have a lovely golden look to them. And I do like the browns in this set, although there may not be enough for some people's liking. Let me know in the comments, do you think there are enough browns in this whole set? Or would you prefer to have more of them? Or less for that matter. There's my favourite walnut brown. I really like that colour. Though now I'm reminded just how much darker the sepia is. I really like how they've laid out their greys, going from dark to light, and then the cold greys are from light to dark. It's an aesthetically pleasing gradient when swatching them out. There's a pretty good range in here from really light greys to much darker ones. So no complaints about those ones. The Payne's grey is decent and the black is really dark. I love that one a lot. Personally, I don't think the metallics are of much use, but there they are, and here is the whole swatch coloured out on this page with all of those neutral earth tones and some of the greens on the end there. This is my second favourite page. And here they all are together. It's a pretty awesome colour range. I just love this line of bright ones. They're so gorgeous. But if you are into your neutrals and browns, these are always really handy colours to have as well. Also a nice gradient of dark to light and back to dark greys. So I think there's pretty much something in here for everyone. It's a very well curated and thorough set, I think. I'm really glad I've finally got them all swatched out. This took me ages. What took even more ages was my drawing today. I'm using Canson Moulin du Roi hot press watercolour paper, and I actually taped off the edges today. My drawing is of a blue-fronted Amazon parrot. I have never seen this bird before, but I saw this really gorgeous photo of one, and I've been saving it up to use with the Albrecht Durer pencils. Sometimes a picture will just inspire me to use a particular art supply. So I'm really glad I got to use this picture today. It was in the Facebook group Free Reference Photos for Artists. And you do have to apply to join because it's a private group. And that's why I can't link it here, unfortunately, but I did pop it up there so you could check it out. So I'm going in with its feathers and doing a light layer with a few different greens. Also some of the turquoises and blues for the front part of the bird. Hence why it's a blue-fronted Amazon, I guess. And I did actually write a list down of all of the colours I've used. Hopefully I will get those into the description so you can check out the colour palette that I chose for this. I think I remembered to write them all in there. It also has a few oranges and yellows in it around its eye. And I thought this would be a nice way to showcase some of the colours in the set, though I didn't really use the browns for this at all. Now that I've done a light layer, I am painting some water onto the pencil just to get it to blend in with each other. And I'm using a sable-haired brush because they hold quite a lot of water, and a juicier brush is actually better, I find. But I didn't want a brush that was too big because I do want to retain some of that preciseness, and then I could paint in little areas at a time. Rather than everything just merging into each other, I was trying to keep the outline of the feathers as much as possible, but you can see the colour is blending in with each other quite considerably. Leaving all that to dry, I started working on the parrot's eye and also its beak. In the picture I couldn't decide if the beak was grey or purple, so I'm using this Delft blue, which is kind of the best of both worlds. It's a purpley blue, and then I added in some grey as well. I think this actually worked out really well for the colour of the beak. And I'm just wetting everything here so I could see all of the colours. I made sure the paper was thoroughly dry before I went in with the second layer of pencils, because if the paper's still wet, the pencil will react and you'll get these really stark lines that you just can't blend out. So do make sure that paper is nice and dry. And then the pencils will layer on top of each other really well. Now I will admit that when it comes to watercolour pencils, I'm not actually that confident with them or very experienced, and my knowledge is fairly limited as well. I have been learning by doing pretty much, but I do feel that I am starting to improve when it comes to using this medium, and it's just a matter of working slowly in layers, I think, until the desired result is achieved. You can see how the colours really do build up over time though. And this is how I like to work with other mediums like watercolour pencils and even regular coloured pencils too. If you try to go in with too much colour, it can make a mess really quickly, but if you add lighter layers and then build it up, there's time to really think about what the colours are going to look like, and then if you've got a few mistakes, you can go over it with other colours and kind of hide the mistakes that way, or blend them in at least a bit more. But I'm really happy with how this parrot turned out. I think the colours in this set are absolutely gorgeous, especially the blues and greens. They're all incredibly vibrant. And the quality of the Albrecht Durer pencils is kind of second to none. The only other brand I know of that makes amazing colour pencils like this is Caran d'Ache. I really liked their super colour pencils, and I also had the Museum Aquarels, which I still need to review. Once I've done a review on that, I might actually put these pencils up head to head to see which one is better, or if they're on a par with each other, but I have a feeling that the Albrecht Durers might just have a slight edge to them, and I just love their 120 set. It is so gorgeous. There are heaps of colours to choose from. Now I'm going in with a third layer and adding in a lot more shadow and detail to those feathers, because at the moment they still look quite patchy and blobby. I find with these watercolour pencils that, yes, there will be some patchiness on the lower layers, but if you do go over with more layers, that tends to resolve itself, the more colour that gets added into that paper. You can really see how the colour is just becoming more and more vibrant, and I had to sharpen some of them. Oh, it's devastating. So now not all the pencils are going to be the same height as each other, but in some ways that's a good thing because it actually makes the set easier to use once the pencils are no longer perfect. The silly things that I get hung up over. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has issues with that as well though. Let me know in the comments if you find it really hard to start a new set of art supplies because you don't want to break its perfection. At this stage I was getting really happy with how the parrot was turning out, and I think I went over everything with just a super light layer of water just to blend it in a little bit and get that vibrancy really popping. As you saw in the reference image, this photo was actually taken on a dark background, but I decided that I wasn't going to do that. So I'm colouring out a few of the pencils that I used on the parrot, and I'm wetting the background, just adding in a very light layer of colour, splashing different colours around so that I get a pastel-y effect. And you can see using the pencils like this that they do act exactly like watercolours with no pencil marks left on the paper. I peeled off that tape before it could stick too much, and then I went over everything with a layer of white gel pen just to bring in some more highlights because I'd lost them all on the feathers, and it just really needed something to make it pop. I think this really finished off the picture and I'm so happy with how it turned out. The scanner's blowing out the background a bit though. Oops. Here we go, all finished. I'm actually really happy with it, although I'm definitely still nowhere near as confident with watercolour pencils as I am with watercolour paints, but I feel like this was quite successful, and I'm really happy with how the colours have turned out, and this rather pastel-y background, which actually worked out much better than expected. So I had a really good time with these pencils. They are extra high quality, and I highly recommend them. And don't forget, there is the tin version, which is quite a lot cheaper than the wooden box version. Speaking of which, I've had the box here the whole time. I pulled over a tiny little table so I could sit the box on it, and then I could just put the pencils up on my desk as I was working with them. I even wrote the names of them down to remind myself which ones I worked with in this particular drawing. And now I'm going to put all of this back in its place along with these swatch sheets that I made. I'm just going to keep them inside the box so that I don't lose them, and then when I open it, they're there waiting for me. So time to close it up. It is no longer perfect as it once was. Some of the pencils are a little bit more used than others. But that's the way it's going to happen. I had to use them eventually. Seal that up, and now I'm going to put it back on the other desk before Gandalf can come and knock this over, because I just know he will. That's back on the shelf safe and sound. Thank you all so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed seeing all of the colours come out onto the paper, along with the big swatching session. And if you're shopping around for watercolour pencils, I've also done a review on the Caran d'Ache Supracolor pencils, which you can see up here, and I'll probably pop another video up here of some kind of coloured pencils that I've done. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, and don't forget to click that subscribe button for more videos. I will see you all again really soon in my next video. Take care out there. Swatch you later. Bye!